So next speaker is Nova Ahmed. Next few stories are very, very personal stories. I'm just going to preview a couple of titles that are coming. How Tinder Girls in Taiwan Taught Me Semi-Structured Interview Skills. When a Phone Call Caused Code Blue. So some fascinating personal stories coming, including Nova Ahmed's story, Breaking the Silence, and I very much appreciate you coming to tell this story. Please welcome Nova Ahmed.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nova. I'm from Bangladesh. So I want to tell my story of how we broke silence working on a particular project. So when I started studying computer science, it was a new subject in Bangladesh. So what happened was there, computer science was equal to programming, doing programming competition, and I was all into it. So naturally, when I came to study for my PhD in Georgia Tech, I was working with sensors, hardware, coding, everything in detail. And I was very fortunate. I was very spoiled by my professor, Umakishore Ramachandran, because I was his only female PhD student in the last 20 years. So I got everything I wanted. And it's not as boring as you think it is. It's pretty interesting. Sensors are more like humans. They can lie, they can deceive you, they can actually give you false hope. And I was having a wonderful time. So when I was working with that, in our lab, something was going on. Some of the postdocs and PhD students were working on a project for an old home. So what they did was, it was a wonderful video system, and it was a surveillance system to support the people in the old home. And everybody loved it, and it worked perfectly. But the problem was, when they went to install it, the people, the residents of the old home, did not like it at all, because they did not like the idea that they will be monitored all the time. And at that time, I went to my advisor and I said, what if we just reverse the idea? Rather than we watching the people of the old home, we let them tell us about where they are at their own pace, at their own comfort level. So it had lots of system stuff and this and that, and my advisor was skeptical about it. So I went with it to a Grace Hopper conference in a competition. And it was not about the competition result. When I presented the work, and I was talking about the old home people, one of the person who came to listen to it came very close to me and gave me a hug. Well, please make it, because people like my mom needs things like this. And I was very touched with that, because I always worked with hardware. It was never human in between. So that was a turning point. At the same time, I met Jill Diamond from Georgia Tech, and she was actually working on domestic violence. And I also met Amy Brookman right after I met her, and I was very inspired. I just wanted to do something different in my mind. So I come to the second part of my story. I finished my PhD and came back to Bangladesh. I was very hopeful. I thought I will solve all the problems, and I knew of a particular problem that interested me. I wanted to work on sexual harassment. At that time in Bangladesh, there were many young girls, right one after the other. They committed suicide, they were devastated, and we read them in newspapers. They're not rural girls. They're girls going to school, they got education, they got full support from the family, but still there were lots of incidents like that. And me working with the systems, I thought I can just go there and solve the problem. I know how to build things, I know of a problem, I will just make something and help them. I can let them connect, let them support each other. And it seemed so easy. And on top of that, I had two amazing people, Ishtiaq and Ferdows, who were with me. And we all were very positive about the whole thing. So that was the time, actually, we found out things were not as we wanted. We first tried to talk to people just to understand how severe the problem is, what's going on among the urban people, and nobody would talk about it. Not a single person wants to share the stories, because it's a very personal thing, but at that time it felt so difficult. We did an online survey. Everybody wrote false answers. It felt like nothing happens. And later somebody will meet me and say, okay, what are you doing with your project? I said, no, it's not a big problem. They'll say, no, because it's online, I wrote a lie. And it got me thinking, maybe we should change the method. We reached out to other researchers, because in Bangladesh there was no HCI researcher. So we did small group discussion. And that was very good. In the small group, once somebody starts talking, we had lots of discussions going on. So it was ongoing, and we started to listen to small stories. But still, it was in a group setting. So if one person takes lead, many of the others will probably remain silent. So I thought, maybe we should talk one-to-one. We need to know more about the problem. So I put the posters all across our department in different campuses, and that is when the problem started. Once I put the posters, some of the posters were torn. There were bad things written on them. I started to get mails, particularly hurting me, and not a single person showed up. I waited for days, weeks, and I was starting to feel very bad, because I was being the female member in the team. I was the one doing all the interviews and talking and everything. And I did not know what I was doing wrong. And there was total silence. And the silence broke very, very surprisingly. One night I was sleeping. In the middle of the night, there was a phone call. And before I took my pen and pencil or anything, or I even realized what's going on, a girl would share her very personal story. And she was almost whispering. Then in my office, I would see girls who wrote their notes on a paper and drop it under the door. They would smile at me, meet me, eye contact with me, but they don't want to share it face to face. And there were very unexpected people who'd come to see me. A girl who works as a maid in the house nearby, she came to see me and said, Apu means sister in Bangla, Apu, please write my story in your computer. And it's not just sharing the stories. Everybody would follow up, ask me how things are going on, how things will be solved. And those stories were so personal, so painful, and it was so brave of them to share the stories. And I just realized how difficult it was to share the stories, why it took some time. It just needed them to get the courage. They needed the time to trust me, and all those time was needed through the process. And over the time, I thought, okay, we probably broke the silence about sexual harassment, because we never used to talk about that. So I come to the last part of the story. This is the personal part. So as I worked on this talk, I did not know where to stop, whether I should stop where I did, or whether I should bring the personal part as well. And I had to think a little bit. I had to take the courage from all the people who talked to me. I had to take some courage from my fighter mom. And I want to tell you that me, my family, we also faced a very public family problem. And throughout the time, we were very silent. And I would never get the courage to break that silence without this Kai session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kai Stories.
Thank you very much, Nova.